I have become the best known sport flooring contractor in the world, and I'm just getting started. Hello, this is Paul Nelson with Western Sport Floors, Wyoming Wood Floors, coming to you today from Clinton, Montana. I have had folks ask me repeatedly for painting and staining videos, so we were doing some company training recently, and we had a lot of our own staff on this job, and we took a bunch of video and some technical data to share with you our process for staining a gym floor. As I mentioned, this video is very technical and detailed, and I fear the casualty will be entertainment, but we will do our best. I think there's some really good information here. This video primarily features our estimator, Mr. Dodd Lowe. He's a CPA by training and a 30-year veteran of lining gymnasium floors. He loves numbers and has an incredible grasp on numbers, laying out floors. He's going to share a little method for making sure that your gym floor is absolutely a rectangle, not a trapezoid. And it's easier to get trapezoids than you might think, so pay attention to what Dodd shares on how to absolutely square up your gymnasium floor, and that starts when you're staining those 3-point arches. As I mentioned, you'll see more people on this job just because we're doing some internal training in our own company. Also, I wanted to note that you see the trio going back and forth on this floor. We love the trio. That machine has an onboard dust collection unit, so after we're done with the trio, I think that does at least as good a job as a buffer. But the benefit is, with the onboard dust collection system, the floor is left very clean. There's no reason to sweep the floor. It's clean at that point, and we can directly start tacking the floor after the trio comes off. So that's why we use the trio. You'll see the folks tacking the floor. So when we start staining, we're starting from the standpoint the floor has been installed, sanded, clean. I think one of the things that we need to do better going forward is to pay a lot more attention at cleaning these floors, because if you start dirty, everything that happens thereafter is impacted by those dirty floors that you started with. So with that, we turn it over to Mr. Dodd Lowe on laying out and staining 3-point arches on a gymnasium floor.
Hi, I'm Dodd Lowe from Western Sport Floor. We're here in the Linderman Gym in Polson, Montana, starting the staining and the painting process. We've recently installed this floor, and we have sanded it and screened it, cleaned it up really well, and we are now at the starting of the staining process. In this setup, we are going to be staining the 3-point lines and a big pirate ship in the middle there. And the first thing that we do is we find the center line between the two baskets. And in order to do that, we have to plumb flat of the glass, center of the basket. I normally take the piece of tape off, put it underneath the laser pointer, and mark exactly where the center is going to be. In this case, we are right on the board seam, which is what we should be on a new install, because when the installers were here, they dropped the same plumb down, and that's where they started their home row. After I've gotten our first measurement, I normally walk the seam down, and about the middle of the gym, I put a piece of tape down on that seam so that I stay consistently with the seam all the way down. Now, if we've done this correctly, and I run the net plumb on the second basket, it should be on the exact same seam. The second reason why I do this is when we get the second plumb down, then I'm going to measure between the two plumb spots and make sure that these baskets are in the same spot, because it doesn't always happen that the other subcontractor who's doing the baskets, sometimes they miss and they're an inch or two off, and that's very important to note that when you're lining a gym floor. After we've got the two plumb marks down, we string a 100-foot tape measure between each of the marks and find out that the basket is in the right spot. In this case, this is a 94-foot court, so you're going to have 4 feet behind the basket on each side for the baseline. Subtract 8 feet from 94 and you get 86, and that's what the tape measure is showing here.
So would you say the basketball equipment folks did this one right?
Oh, they did a very good job on it. I've seen it as much as 1.5 inches or 2 inches off. Okay, the next thing to do is we're going to find the center for our center circle, and we're going to find the center for our half circles on the keys. In this case, the volleyball standards have been marked at installation. When they installed right over the top of it, and they drilled a hole right in the center of each of those standards. From there, we ran a string between the 2 standards, as you can see here. You can see where I marked on the center seam right here. So that tells me that the center circle has to be right where the seam comes down and passes underneath my string. We've completed finding the center circle. Now we're working on the tops of the keys. The first step is your regular tape measure. Measure up from that initial plumb that we did. Okay, in this case, our tape measure starts at where the plumb block mark was. We bring it up. The mark is going to be at 15 feet. Now, in this case where we did the install and we know that the center of the seam is at the drop point or plumb mark, we can just run right up that seam. In other cases where the plumb doesn't hit the center of the seam, you're going to have to run a string between the 2 points to do this. All right, now that we've got the tape measure out, the measurement is from the flat of the glass, it's 15 feet to the center of the half circle on the free throw lane. Okay, after we've got the second basket, half court or half circle figured out, we've done what I consider establishing the 5 points of reference on the floor. That's the center of the half court circle, the center circle, and the far side half court circle for the free throw line. And then the 2 volleyball caps, the 2 volleyball standards in the center. So that gives you 5 points of reference. From there, you can draw all the parallel and all the 90-degree lines that you possibly could need to do 3 basketball, 3 volleyball. Now what we need to do is establish the side basketball court line. And what we've done here is we've measured from our center mark 25 feet and made a little tape mark right here showing where the sideline is going to be. After we established our 25-foot mark, as you can see right here, what I go ahead and do is stretch a piece of tape about 3 foot long. Basically, I use the seam as a guideline and match it up so that it's running parallel with the seam. That way we're going to be able to make a measurement in order to have a square back sideline. We're here in center court and we have driven our scratch awl into the center punch for the center circle. From there we're going to measure down to the sideline with our 100-foot tape measure. I choose an even number, so take a look at where your half court plumb is. So right where this covers 53 feet, first of all, you got to make sure that your measuring tape is straight. Then move it so that 53 is right on this edge. Then you're going to take your pen and make a mark right where it crosses that. The reason why I'm doing this is because what you're doing is you're basically using a triangulation method to get a perpendicular line to the side basketball court. That's where the perpendicular of your baseline will meet up with the side line at a 90-degree angle. We're doing this method because we'd like our basketball court to be a perfect rectangle. I've seen a lot of companies that run their center line and then measure down to get their marks. And if those volleyball standards are not exactly 90 degrees with the floor, what you end up with is a skew and make a trapezoid rather than a rectangle. The measurements, it might measure out right, but it might not be square. Okay, once we've got the triangulation method, we run the string between the one mark and the next mark. And if you've done this properly, then when it crosses the mark, your 4-foot mark that you made here, that'll tell you that you're perpendicular to the sideline. And now we're going to run a line of tape down to where our stain is going to go to. Now our mark here is at 4 feet from the flat of the glass, the plumb mark that we made there. The stain is going to go to 4'1". So when I run my line of tape, which you can see on my liner right here, there's an inch from the center, which is where the string is going to go down to the edge of the tape, and that's why the stain will go to the 4'1" mark, which will be an inch underneath the paint that we eventually put down. In the process of staining, you need to figure out where the stain is going to come to when you're staining 3-point arcs. In this case, you know that the radius of your circle is 6 feet from the center of the circle to the outside edge of the paint. Paint, not stain, paint. So when you're doing the staining, the stain actually needs to be 5'11" from the center. So you're going to want your edge to be end at 5'11", and then the stain outside of that. We're now running the line of the free throw lane that goes from the baseline to the half circle. So in this case, the stain is going up to the 5 foot or past the 5'11" mark. So Zach here is making a mark at 5'11". That'll tell us where the tape needs to be. Further on down here, we know that the outside edge of the 3-point line is 19 feet 9 inches from the center of the basket. So if the outside is 19.9, then our stain is going to go to 19 feet 8. So he's going to make a mark at 19 feet 8. Okay, now we're going to put the line down between the half court or the half circle and the baseline. The way I'm doing it here is by hand. I wouldn't do this if we were doing paint, but since it's stain and we're in the very middle of center of the 2-inch line, it's not as critical that your line is absolutely straight. So we've stretched a piece of tape out, starting right at the circle. We made our mark at 5'11". I know that this edge of the tape needs to go to that 5'11" mark. I put a little bit of pressure on the tape, but I don't stretch it. It's just tight. I lay the thing down straight down, and then I pat the tape all the way down. And the reason why you pat it, instead of running your hand all the way along like this, is it's kind of like air hockey. If you get air underneath of this tape and you run your hand all the way down like this, your tape tends to get the air underneath it and it moves, and you no longer have a straight line. As you can see, after we've got the key done, the next step is to do the 3-point line. 3-point line outside of the 3-point line is 19 feet 9 inches from the center. Stain is going to go to 19 feet 8. In this case, the top of the key, you know, since you shortened up your circle to 5'11", the top of that key is going to be where the 19 feet 8 needs to be. Remember when you're doing the 3-point line that the 3-point line center is not the flat of the glass like your plumb bob mark is. The center of the 3-point line is 15 inches up from that center plumb. The way to check that is to do your 15 inches, look straight up. If you're looking approximately into the middle of the basket, then you've got your center spot in the right spot. After we've got the 3-point line and key taped, the next thing we're going to do is we're putting a outside skirt on everything so that we have a little bit more room when we put the stain down, and that it doesn't go over the top of our tape. It's real important to do that because stain will automatically, this floor is very susceptible to stain right now. If you're not careful and you get stain on the other side of that, then it's going to require sanding off that stain and sanding deeper than you would really want to at this point. So from now on, it's really important that sweat, anything like that, doesn't touch the stained area, and that you don't get the stain outside of the stained area when you begin staining.
Well, if you're still watching this video at this point, thank you very much. You're obviously interested in gymnasiums, gymnasium flooring, and staining 3-point arches or staining other areas in the gym floor. I always want to point out that this isn't the only way to do this. This is just simply our way. I'm sure there's other right ways that folks do it. This is staining on raw maple. This is not the same thing as pulling tinted ceiling. So that would be a completely different video. At any rate, appreciate you watching. For Western Sport Floors and Wyoming Wood Floors, this is Paul Nelson. You make it a great day.